Well, welcome back, hardy folk that you are. May I introduce Harriett, who kindly is holding down, up, out the fort. Thank you. Welcome.
Thank you. Hello. The title of my talk is what are you going to do with that data? Needs assessment of humanities scholars and digital collections. This admittedly will be less technical than a number of the studies, but I hope it will still be in dialogue with much of the talks that have been presented today. So for many of the scholars conducting digital humanities research today, the golden path to acquiring data sets often runs through digital collections. So whether large institution-based collections like the HathiTrust Digital Library or Library of Congress's American Memory Archive, proprietary databases such as Early English Books Online and ArtStore, commercial enterprises such as Google Books, or scholars amass personal digital collections, digital collections are instrumental to how humanities scholars find and use primary sources for their research. But the means and methods of building digital collections for research has transformed over the past 2 decades. At first, the focus was primarily on quantity. How much material could a library or museum digitize? The Library of Congress established the National Digital Library Program in 1994 to pioneer the standards and processes for digitization of research archives. And many institutions followed suit with their own collections to the point that today we have hundreds and thousands, likely, of terabytes of digitized material. But now that we have amassed this plethora of digital collections and materials, the next question I feel we need to ask is, how can digital collections meet scholars' research needs? This paper will discuss a needs assessment I've been doing of humanities scholars and digital collections, and I hope this study will reveal, or begin to reveal, how humanists' vision for their future work for data sets with research. So the context for this assessment is a partial origination in the Bamboo Technology Project, also known as Project Bamboo. Bamboo was and is a multi-year Mellon Foundation-funded research initiative to build an e-research platform for humanities scholarship. The Project Bamboo participants are an international consortium of 10 research institutions listed here from the United States, the UK, and Australia, including the University of Illinois, Northwestern, University of Maryland, Oxford, and Australian National University. And the research team members include teaching faculty, librarians, and academic technologists. So the project began as a series of workshops around the country that gathered qualitative data on how scholars conducted humanities research with digital materials. And the reports are on the Bamboo website listed here. And now for the past couple years, the phase 1 of the Bamboo Technology Project has focused on building tools and web services for a humanities e-research environment. This e-research environment seeks to enable researchers to work with both large and smaller data sets. The main platform will be based on Hub Zero, an ongoing e-research environment that's been developed for the sciences out of Purdue, that was developed to facilitate research with large data sets in e-science, and similar aims are in process for Bamboo's humanities e-research platform. So I've been working on the collections interoperability team at the University of Illinois, which focuses on the development of metadata standards that apply across large collections of data and connectors between large collections that will enable cross-collection use. This work of my colleagues for Project Bamboo focuses on the content. How to prepare digital materials to be used on the platforms and tools in Bamboo, as well as many other tools that have been developed. Mass collections such as Google Books and HathiTrust Digital Library are the starting test points, but there are many specialized and sizable digital collections that scholars use as well. So as such, I wanted to launch a study to examine this question. What do humanities scholars need in the functionalities and features of digital collections in order to use them for humanities research? A foundational perspective on humanist needs can be found in John Unsworth's outline of how research workflows of humanities scholars follow a pattern of discovering, referring, annotating, comparing, representing, sampling, and illustrating, a series of research processes he calls scholarly primitives that should be considered when building digital resources for humanities research. And studies by Carol Palmer, William Brockman et al., and Palmer and Pierman from 2010 also note the cross-disciplinary nature and heterogeneity of scholars' research collections as they use a wide variety of materials, including texts, paintings, films, audio, and other artifacts. And the actual usage and user enhancement of digital collections has been the focus of several recent studies. Studies by Claire Warwick and Melissa Terrace have looked at the scholarly use of digital information sources in the humanities and have found, among other things, that user-friendly interfaces and high-quality content are imperative to wider spread adoption of digital sources. And then a 2010 study by Palmer, Zavlina, and Finland discusses how to develop digital collections of historical texts and propose the application of the contextual mass principle to build collections with thematic strengths and intellectual coherence. And then the Joint Information Systems Committee in the UK, JISC, funded a series of studies on the impact and usage of digital resources, particularly the ones that they've given grants for. And this included the study led by Eric T. Meyer at Oxford, Digitization Programs, Impact and Embedding of Digitized Resources, that led to the development of a toolkit for the impact of digitized scholarly resources, or TIDSR. So that gives just a quick overview of how there's an emerging and rapidly expanding research area that seeks to examine the use and users of humanities digital collections and new research methodologies that are emerging from the increasing use of digital sources. So in light of these studies and others, my study sought to explore what scholars needed from digital collections to do their research. What do existing collections do well, and what can be improved? How do scholars currently navigate between digital and original archival resources at their disposal? So the study consisted of a survey distributed to English and history faculty at 12 research universities, shown here, and also 18 interviews thus far conducted with fine arts faculty and performing arts faculty at these same universities. And so today I'd like to present some of the results and some analysis. So the survey ran from about October through 2011 through February 2012, and was distributed to a random 1/3 of faculty members from each English and history department surveyed, and it generated a response rate about 20%. In the survey, the scholars were asked if and how they used digital collections in their research. The most frequent type of materials used by respondents was text at 100%, and images about 93-94%, followed by maps at 58%, video at 42%, and then audio at 39%. And then in terms of frequency of use of digital materials, 36% of respondents said that they use print and digital resources in equal amounts. Another 36% said that they use digital resources in less than half the time, while 20% they use digital resources more than half the time, and 7% said they always use digital materials. So that just kind of gives an overview of the basic frequency at which they responded. Then respondents were asked to identify the leading features that they needed for digital collections in each of the following formats: text, images, and then multi-format media, which included video, audio, and other types of audio-visual materials. So for collections of text, responses most frequently identified two functionalities that they needed for such collections: effective searchability and the ability to download and export files. Other leading responses included detailed metadata and complete contents in the collections. And here's a list of some of the open-ended responses I received, including capability to be read on multiple devices, e.g. iThing, laptop, desktop, the ability to annotate text in private and public environments where I could keep stuff for myself or share it with others. And then I thought there was a little interesting use of JavaScript or some system that is compatible with software loaded on most research faculty's computers. I have colleagues who often work on out-of-date computer systems at home. So I thought these responses really highlighted the ways in which scholars seek to export and use materials in a diverse array of research environments. And their responses to the other types of research material, I feel, further attested to these inclinations. For collections of images, the most frequently identified functionalities were the option to download, editing tools, detailed metadata, and user-friendly interfaces. Some of the responses, again, are listed here, and some that I'd like to highlight: the ability to have a folder of images in the collection to which I can return that contains all the copyright and original publication material associated with the image. And then also viewing and zooming tools, color accuracy, ability to export, and then reliable metadata. I think these responses further reveal how scholars seek a level of comprehensiveness in the digital collections in terms of both the content and the analytical tools provided to them in that collection to use within that archival environment. Then for multi-format media, such as video and audio files, The answers were more wide-ranging, but included comments such as ability to embed in other sites. I use my own websites for drafts of work and multimedia, ability to export and view in other sessions, or annotation tools. Especially for multi-format media, some of these functionalities are not within reach yet, especially for kind of the publicly available collections that we're able to make. But these are types of active editorial control over digitized materials that are characteristic also of the functionalities that scholars express the strongest need for. Then they were asked to identify tools or functionality features that would, quote, induce you to use more digital collections more frequently in your research. When asked this, a couple of respondents were a little defensive, such as, I don't need to be induced. But others suggested a range of functionalities that would make digital materials as malleable for intensive research analyses as physical archives have been for traditional scholarship. Some of the most viable suggestions include, and one I wanted to particularly highlight was ability to create one's own, quote, library held on a digital database's server space like the HathiTrust collections allow, a concern for those of us who don't want to eat up all our hard drive space with the PDFs. And I would say initiatives such as the developing HathiTrust Research Center are striving to provide, and Bamboo as well, are striving to provide these flexible and customized e-research environments for humanists. So that diverse modes of accessibility, usability, and content quality were the predominant concepts to conveyed in at least the survey responses. And I believe these functionalities begin to suggest that digital collections are usable in as much as they are flexible to research needs and the tools that scholars either develop or utilize in their other research environments. Then respondents were asked about specific uses of digital collections in their own research. And so here's a list of the longer responses. And some of them include searching large bodies of text and large numbers of images for relevant materials. And then I study mass media, so I rely on databases of old television and audio recordings. And as these and the other sample responses indicate, scholars use digital collections for a range of uses for both critical sources and research tools. So they mine the mass collections for material, verify transcriptions, and access materials, of course, that they would previously had to travel to or get a fellowship for. Then the interviews. So the second part of the study involved interviewing 18 faculty members, and the faculty were interviewed by email, telephone, and person about their use of digital collections and how they envisioned future humanities research with digital tools and resources. When asked how often they use digital materials compared to archival and physical artifacts, respondents most frequently indicated that they use digital materials more often than physical materials. But many respondents included e-journals in their definition of digital materials when I was really looking to talk about digital primary sources. So when discounting the use of e-journals, most respondents use digital and print materials in about equal frequency. As one respondent noted, I use the real objects as possible. I use digital reproductions if I don't have access to the originals. Since I don't have access to most of the original objects and images I want to study, I would guess about half and half. And this is characteristic of many of the types of responses. Then they were asked to identify the benefits of using original materials over digital surrogates. The most frequently cited reason for using originals was completeness of contents, including the sensory experience of interacting with the actual material, and then also reading annotations and reading the marginalia. Other leading reasons included flexible usage, so they weren't dependent on technology or infrastructure for using the materials, and also the research processes needed, of course, the contextualization that originals provide. But several respondents still noted that they integrated the print and digital in their research. As one respondent noted, I still must and do consult originals, but for teaching I've always relied on surrogates, but for my research, the availability of databases, particularly for periodicals, historical dictionaries, and other online primary and secondary sources, generally has been an enormous boon. So again, we're seeing kind of the hybrid model for using these research materials. And on the other end, respondents cited the benefits of the digital surrogate as most often being the portability and accessibility of digital sources from convenience in downloading and usability of digital sources and doing close examinations, and then also ensuring preservation of the original objects themselves, of course. And then one respondent noted, and I thought there was kind of an interesting contrast, that I teach contemporary literature, so no one expects me to assign a given writer's drafts of a published novel. Why should it be any different when it comes to digital images of art that may be housed in distant museums or digitized manuscripts that may be too frail to sustain the wear and tear of hundreds of freshmen's hands? So then I asked again, similar to the survey, what would improve their research experience with digital collections. So interviewees' most frequently cited improvement was in the area of searchability, which ranged from cross-collection searching to highly precise keywords and full-text searching. Content was a close second again, as respondents cited the need for consistent, complete, and high-quality images for content of collections. And the availability of annotation and editing tools was again another highly cited need. As one respondent noted, as I quote here, the easier objects are to repurpose, remix, and reuse, the better. This motivated desire to repurpose and remix data for research can also be seen to the responses I received to challenges they encountered with digital resources. Respondents cited some of the biggest challenges were in the areas of usability, searching, access to content, anything from poorly designed interfaces to imprecise searching mechanisms to incomplete contents for source materials. And then one respondent also noted that one challenge is too much data and the need to find new ways to design research projects to manage it. So as such, data, of course, is a major challenge, and I think many of the functionalities identified by the respondents in my study are critical tools that researchers overall need to browse and manage the data that they draw from our digital collections for their research. So this preliminary data analysis suggests, I believe, that humanities scholars are utilizing digital collections in complex ways, not simply to find the existence of a document or to supplement images for an article, but as primary source material, as analytical tools, and of course as resources to broaden the scope and depth of their analysis and scholarly knowledge. And I feel ultimately we must consider how scholars' needs for digital collections should shape the development of humanities cyber infrastructure as outlined in the American Council of Learned Societies 2006 Our Cultural Commonwealth Report. In order to build the collaboratories and e-research environments for the humanities will critically involve advances in digital collection and will involve advances in the functionalities, structures, and content of our digital collections. So through these and through my and other developing user studies with digital collections, I anticipate that we'll learn how the scholarly process for the humanities is undergoing a complex, multifaceted transformation that involves a recalibration of skills, a reevaluation of scholarly perspective, and the emergence of a collaborative consortium between libraries, collection creators, and scholars. Thank you.
Thank you. Questions, comments?
All right, sure.
Do you have a plan for moving forward?
Well, of course, with this study, for this day, I have to publish it, and then with Project Bamboo, we're hoping to use kind of these results to figure out what are the tools that we need to either process collections so that we make them prepared for this e-research environment. So this coming fall/winter, as we develop, both either the metadata standards and then other tools that people have developed, hopefully this information will help us narrow down, okay, these are the tools that we need to have to process the collections.
Are you looking also beyond tools and services? It sounds like there's a lot of need for help and assistance to use tools. Are you thinking about that as well?
I think that's a definite point. In my own efforts, in my own library, that's one thing that I've focused on is providing services. And I think on a larger scale, this is what scholars need. A number of the responses that I didn't highlight here talked about just knowing how to navigate the collections, knowing just like basic need for education on how to use the tools, how to use the collections themselves. And I think there's a real, kind of transferring, there's still kind of the ivory tower, I need to work on this on my own mindset, but there's still very much this need of, well, I'm interested in using these materials, but I need more help in knowing what's out there, how I can use it. Sorry, I forget.
Are you maybe planning to
because I do have access to the data logs, at least at Illinois, and perhaps in the How Do You Trust, I think I might be able to get some of those.
It's hard to tell who's a scholar and who's not. It's not so you can compare those to blogs or offline, or although TV circulation materials.
But that's a great, I mean, that's something that we can definitely incorporate.
Any perspectives on, I saw the conclusion that people want kind of their own workspace then where they can put these things and manipulate them and have them easily available. Any indications of what they want to do with their own scholarship then once they've created it, or has it gone that far?
And in terms of like preservation or?
Yeah, or do they want to add it back into tools to share, or to not share, or?
I think there is actually, at least the responses I received in the survey, they do want to be able to share it. And then also, just kind of the work that I've done a little bit with the High Trust Research Center, there is this impetus to share and kind of exchange data sets and exchange what they've been doing and produce the results, and almost have like informal forum for scholarly communication so that people can see their projects, you know, before it comes out in PMLA or whatnot. So I think there's the need to have a space where they can collect their collections and do their work, but then also share it and see what others are doing and along the same line of work. So both in the survey and then other work I've done, I think there is much more interest to share it.
Yeah, so I think sort of one of the biggest challenges and sort of the elephant in the room is the issue of copyright.
Yes.
I know that you touched on sort of those that study contemporary literature in your interviews. Has Project Bamboo run into issues there, and how are they sort of navigating those waters?
Right, well, yes, copyright's a huge issue. For Project Bamboo, we're only pretty much just going up to the 1922, 1923 break point. And so the collections the data that we've gotten from Google Books and the stuff that we're able to use in the High Trust Digital Library is pretty much just stopped right there. And that's for a number of projects that are trying to, such as Ben's work and other scholars who are doing kind of text mining. That's the big thing, is how can we start to mine 20th century works without exposing and making it reconsumptive. But for Bamboo, we're pretty much signing at the 1922 mark for now. But like, say with the High Trust Research Center, that's one thing where we're trying to figure out how can we help people, let people use copyrighted works, whether in the High Trust Digital Library and Google Books, in a non-consumptive form. So people are definitely looking at that question.
You mentioned the return rate is like 20%.
Yeah, for the
What's that
survey.
in the number?
Sarah?
How much is that? How many in number?
Oh, the precise number was 75 actual responses, but it's 20% of all people that I surveyed.
And I wonder if you think about the difference with this English and history department's responses and versus the science tech faculty response.
Right.
Would that be any difference or anything?
Well, I'm very much aware that the English and history faculty are very text-based, whereas at least with the fine arts faculty, I was trying to get it from a different perspective, so I wasn't just hearing from people who work with it. And then, in comparison to other like social scientists and stuff, that again would be a different perspective. So, in this admittedly small study, I tried to get at least from kind of the image-based disciplines versus the text-based disciplines, but there's still much more that can be done to get a much fuller view of how all the ways that humanists and humanistic social sciences even use digital resources.
Are you worried that because the people who filled out the survey volunteered to fill it out, you only got 20%? Are you worried that it may be skewed one way, that you got the people who were more interested in digital resources and the ones who were just not interested just weren't filling it out?
Right, yeah, that's, because actually originally I was originally thinking I really wanted to get a high response rate, so originally I was going to kind of target more people who did digital resources, but I actually worked with librarians and academic professionals at each of the universities to get a sense that the people I picked out for each survey was an even mix of people who were known to be doing digital humanities and people who were more traditional humanists. And so I think in the overall responses, I got a fairly balanced mix. So some people were fairly upfront of, I'm not using digital resources that much, but I'm interested in it, and here's what I think based on my limited experience. Whereas other people were very evidently active, very active in digital humanities. So I think it still probably is a little biased, but after thinking it through, I tried to at least to get an even mix of faculty and randomly select them enough.